If you soak your beans and grains overnight and cook them thoroughly, you can pretty much rest on the ability to incorporate these foods safely into your everyday. Hi, I'm Maria, otherwise known as the Fit Foodie. I'm a chef, holistic nutritionist, author, inventor, and mom. And I want to welcome you to my podcast. It's called Recipes for Your Best Life. And with every episode, I'm peeling back the onion on fitness, nutrition, health, wellness, and family. The truth is, you're the chef of your life. And for every important pillar, there's a great recipe worth sharing. So every week, we'll explore them together. Think of it as food for thought that you can really sink your teeth into. So join me, and let's squeeze the joy out of this life, because you only get one. Can I get a fork, yeah? Grains. They've gotten a bad rap. And the idea you have to avoid them, or worse, eliminate them entirely from your everyday eating plan is pretty much BS. Did I just hear your fork drop? Well, we've heard a lot about carbs, this big category of food, being the foundation of the evil empire. It's as if the mere utterance of the word is enough to make you gain 5 pounds and become permanently bloated. But the confusion lies in the fact that carbohydrates show up in a myriad of forms. They're an integral component of fruit, vegetables, grains, nuts, seeds, legumes. And they have a really important place in your diet. They can deliver a ton of nutrients, including essential amino acids. Essential. I'm talking about the building blocks of humanity. Especially if you're vegan or vegetarian and not eating any animal protein, they're pretty much non-negotiable. And the truth is, grains and carbs have a really important place in your diet. But they are a huge category, and to just throw the baby out with the bathwater is a little silly. But you may have heard about popular books like Grain Brain or Wheat Belly and why they recommend avoiding the whole category. But I really want to unpack this because my understanding of nutrition is very different. Avoiding the whole grain category is like saying avoid exercise because you might pull a muscle. But the benefits far outweigh the risks. It's just how you do it, the proportion, the form, and how you bring it all together. If you travel around the world, you'll find that grains play a pretty major role in the global diet. Rice, wheat berries, for example, farro, kamut, quinoa. I mean, they're in different pockets of the world. Combined with beans, they're like the perfect protein profile. And they are substantive for people in developing countries where meat is pretty much a luxury. So let's break this down a little bit more. What are we talking about when we're talking about grains? There's a whole category of gluten-free superfood grains that need to make their way onto your plate for a lot of different reasons. And I'm going to break them down for you in this episode. We're also going to talk about how to cook them, how much to eat, how do you prepare them, and how do you consume them so that they are delicious and nutritious. I want to help you undo all of the preconceived notions you might have about grains. So off to nutrition therapy class we go. Let's boil it down. There is, number one, a huge difference between processed flour products like baked goods, including muffins, breads, desserts, cookies, and snack foods. And even within those categories, there are a lot of differences between those and single ingredient, gluten-free superfood grains. Okay, let's break this down because this is a big category. Most of the issues that people have from eating these foods are from processed flours, hydrogenated oils, and other ingredients like quick rise yeasts that actually contribute to these gut issues. It's not just the flour. You can have a really good quality grain flour that doesn't add to all of these digestive problems. I'll give you an example. Here in the US, quick rise yeasts are rampant, okay? And they are used to accelerate, obviously, the rising process. But they also can create havoc in your gut. Whereas fermented starters that are often found in sourdough, or, when you go to other countries, like you go to Italy and you eat the bread and the pasta and you don't have these gluten issues. It's because the flour and the yeasts that are used in those breads are very different. So it's not a one size fits all. When it comes to the single ingredient superfood grains that I'm talking about, and I dive in really deep into the subject in my book, Eat Like You Give a Fork, The Real Dish on Eating to Thrive, the super kind usually fall in the ancient grains category. And when they're in their whole state, as close to as nature intended, they are truly superfoods. They're loaded with B vitamins and different essential minerals like magnesium. They even contain a substantive amount of protein, which again, if you are not eating animal-based proteins, you need these in your everyday. And they can aid in the fat burning process. Plus, they're a source of tremendous fiber, and that can lower your risk for heart disease and high cholesterol and heal your gut, not accelerate the degradation of your gut. So how do you know which ones to pick? Well, here's a little survey to help you evaluate if that grain is worth your saliva. Number 1, is it minimally processed? Can you recognize it in its whole form? That's number 2, by the way. Number 3, does it have added ingredients? And if they do, can you recognize what they are? I'm not saying that you have to buy a grain in the bulk bin for it to be nutritious, but if you're looking at a list of 30, 40 ingredients and you can't recognize or understand what most of those are, it's probably best to go back to the bulk bin and get them in their whole form. Is it grown on a plant or is it made in a plant? Soybeans can be a really great part of your diet, but if it's ground up and processed with a bunch of other ingredients, I would just question that and try and get back to the whole form. Number 5, does it taste good? I mean, taste is pretty important. And if they're not tasting good, you might want to take a look at how you're preparing them. And I will dive deep into that in just a few minutes. And then lastly, does it contain detectable nutrients? As I shared, there are a ton of benefits from these super kind of grains. And I want you to get more of those into your everyday. So let's break down what these grains do for you. And by the way, if your answer to all of those questions was, yes, it does taste good, it is minimally processed, it is in its whole form, I want you to really drop the guilt and shame around grains. I mean, the grain shaming really needs to go by the wayside, if you ask me. So, carbohydrates, specifically grains, can help to feed your brain with glucose, okay? And you need that quick energy in order to quickly react. They have a place in your everyday. And the kind that don't spike your blood sugar are the best because they're full of fiber. They're going to help keep you regular. They're going to help keep those toxins moving through your body, which is so important to overall health. And nobody likes to feel clogged up, let's face it. But to add to that, they can make you feel good by encouraging the production of serotonin. And more of that feel-good juice coursing through your veins is a good thing. We should all have that in our everyday. Plus, that quick boost of energy you get that helps to keep you from crashing throughout the day can be used in a positive way. Think about before a workout or as a pick-me-up in the afternoon to avoid that slump where normally you'd be reaching for the energy drinks. They can load you up with stress-reducing vitamins, those B vitamins that are so essential to help you managing that everyday stuff. That stuff that bogs you down in life. And they can feed you to the core with minerals that boost metabolism and stoke the fire in your body to burn fat. It's all where it's at when it comes to single ingredient superfoods grains. Now, size does matter, and grains add texture and can help you feel fuller and more satisfied for longer, which is amazing. But usually the problem is in the proportions. You're not getting to eat cups and cups and cups of cooked grains every day. But you can feel good about getting about 25% of your daily intake of nutrients from a variety of gluten-free super grains, from breakfast to dinner and snacks in between, and still turn your body into a fat-burning machine. Because you will feel fuller longer. That's the beautiful thing. So imagine just reaching your fork into a beautiful risotto made with amaranth or millet or black rice even. Maybe even arborio rice. It's okay. You can do this with this plan. It's how you cook it, what you add to it, how you top it, and the proportions that you eat it in. And I dive really, really deep into that, into the convertible meals section of my book. Now, before I get into how to pull the best from them taste-wise, because let's face it, brown rice is not one of the most exciting foods on its own, I want to dive a little bit into another misconception about grains and legumes and put your mind at ease, and that is lectins. This is the question that pops up continuously from savvy foodies when I talk about including superfood grains in your everyday eating plan. What are lectins? Lectins are a family of proteins, and gluten is a protein, but lectins are a family of proteins that show up in pretty much all plant foods, but mostly grains, beans, peanuts, and nightshade vegetables like eggplant and tomatoes. And they can wreak havoc on your gut. Some people just have an intolerance to them. They're the part of the plant's defenses that protect them against invaders like insects. So consequently, they've been associated with having an inflammatory and even a potentially toxic effect on us humans who eat them. But here's the part that doesn't get mentioned like it should. Lectins are pretty much eliminated with soaking and cooking. And I don't know about you, but munching on raw kidney beans and rice is not my thing. I mean, you've got to cook them. And when you soak them, you up the ante of eliminating those lectins that can help to even further with digestibility. If you soak your beans and grains overnight and cook them thoroughly, you can pretty much rest on the ability to incorporate these foods safely into your everyday. Okay, now let's talk about gluten-free super grains. I call them GFSGs for short. And man, there are so many options, it'll blow your mind. Let's get past the brown rice for just a second and talk about a bunch of other options. And here's the thing, don't be intimidated by cooking them. You can grab them from the bulk bin at your local grocery store or find them online or buy them in a package, but the proportions of eating them is pretty simple. It's almost always a cup of grains for 2 cups of liquid, with some exceptions. But I got you covered on that. Just check out the book and you'll learn how to cook all of them. But let's talk about a few of them that I love. Amaranth. Now, this is a gluten-free grain that was a major source of nutrition for the Aztecs. And its heritage can be traced back over 8,000 years. It grows in the harshest of conditions. I mean, it's a survivor after all, and offers about 5 grams of protein and 2 grams of fat per half cup serving. So yes, you can get this great protein from your grains. And it's got anti-inflammatory, digestion boosting, cholesterol lowering, and weight loss accelerating powers up the yin-yang. But it's especially helpful if you're trying to build muscle because it's rich in the amino acid lysine. And athletes often use it as a protein supplement, but hey, you can get it in its whole food source. It's also a great source of folate. So if you're pregnant or thinking about making a baby, it's a good idea to add it to your daily rep because it helps to stimulate healthy new cells, which after all, we could all use. And its nutty flavor makes it a great candidate for a warm or cold breakfast cereal, rice pudding, or even as a side dish. And it breaks down easily, so it can be used to thicken stews, chili, and gumbo. I mean, amaranth. Have you ever tried amaranth? I think you need to go out and get some. Black rice. Here's another one that I love. And while you might be familiar with the nutrient power of brown rice, I would suggest you try black rice. It has always been known as forbidden rice because it was reserved for the Chinese royalty, but now it's available everywhere. You don't have to be a king or a queen to have it. And it is rich in that super class of antioxidants called anthocyanins. And that's what gives it its